Is brought to you in part by Wells Fargo Bank. Hi, I'm Catherine Gray, founder of She Angel Investors and co-founder of the She Angels Foundation. I'm also the podcast host of Invest in Her and an award-winning producer, author, and TEDx speaker. Our show, Invest in Her, features phenomenal female founders and funders. As you know, women receive less than 2% of venture capital funding. Our series is about accelerating the funding of women by connecting them to funding resources. Let's meet today's guest. Welcome to today's episode of Invest in Her. I'm your host, Catherine Gray, a founder of She Angel Investors, co-founder of the She Angels Foundation, and more recently, the producer of Show Her the Money movie. And I am so excited to have on a great guest today because what we're going to be talking about is why entrepreneurs should create their own book and how to do that while running your business. So today I have on an expert in that. She is the podcast host of Writing for Immortality and founder of DIYBook, as well as In Ink Ghostwriting. Let's welcome to the show, Barbara Basbanes Richter. Hi, how are you, Barbara? How are you?
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thanks. Coming to us from New York today, right?
Yep, live and in living color.
With your family, and I read your bio and your basset hounds. Is that right?
Yes, one of whom has just joined me. She's on her
I love that. I love that. I always love a dog lover.
Good.
We have a little Maltipoo ourselves, and they're the best, right? They enrich our lives with so much joy, don't they?
They absolutely do.
Yeah.
We're lucky to have them.
Well, so let's talk about your background and how and why you got into this arena of helping entrepreneurs create their own book.
Okay.
So let's first talk about that because I know you have some interesting accolades. You are actually you belong to the Ticknor Society, a voting member of National Book Critics Circle. What is that? Tell me about that just for starters.
So the National Book Critics Circle, I mean, you may have heard of them, the NBCC. They were founded in the 70s to honor books and actually as a way for critics to get together and honor books that have, shaped the discourse over the previous year. So I'm a voting member of that. There are, I forget how many hundreds of members there are, but it's everybody who's not in the New York Times, basically.
Yeah.
They're the only ones who aren't allowed in because they have their own platform.
That sounds like a super cool thing to be doing. And, I know you have a background here in French language and literature from Smith College and Tufts, wonderful universities. And, you've been writing, I guess, all of your life, right?
Mm-hmm. I kind of come from a family of writers. I guess you could say I'm a second generation bibliophile. My father is an author. He's 81 now, and he's working on his book number 11 for Yale. His first book was called A Gentle Madness. It's about book culture and book people. So he's been writing ever since I can remember. And before that, he was a book critic. So again, that seems to be the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah. Well, when I think writing is a gift. I mean, I guess people could cultivate it, but I think for the most part, it's a gift. I can imagine that's why you also do ghostwriting, because a lot of people don't want to write their own book. But you have your DIY book, do it yourself, of course. And I want to talk about that as a resource for today. So tell me, Barbara, why should entrepreneurs write their own book, and how do they balance that with running a business? Because we all know entrepreneurs have very little time. So I want to know the secret to that, and I'm glad you're going to share that with us today.
Thank you. Well, I think that business owners, entrepreneurs should consider writing a book even while they're running a business. We can talk about strategies, but primarily one, it establishes you as a thought leader in your field. If you write it, you are the expert. You've put your name on something, you've put time into creating this project, and you want to share that knowledge with either your customers or fellow business owners or whomever you're trying to reach. So for that very reason right there alone, it's important, I think, to have a book, something bound between either hard or soft covers. It can help entrepreneurs elevate their profile. So not only are you becoming an expert in a field, or not necessarily becoming, already are, demonstrating that, you're also connecting with other people who might be able to help you either grow your business or generate leads, or again, whatever your end goal is. And finally, it can help you get speaking engagements, get on podcasts, all of these things that entrepreneurs always want to do, but can sometimes perhaps find challenging to do so.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what DIYBook does.
It is so true that it's such a great marketing tool, isn't it? And it gives people automatic gravitas. You know, I once read that research shows that people find the term author more in higher regard than even like doctor or admiral or whatever. And I think it's because not everyone can be a doctor or a lawyer or an actor or whatever, but you can be an author. And I think everybody has like a book in them, but they really admire the people that actually wrote the book, because they probably wanted to write one themselves. So for some reason, author seems to be a really prestigious title in people's minds and hierarchy. So it is something that is worth looking into creating. And Barbara, how would someone get a hold of you to create their own book? Like, what is your website? Tell us how to reach you.
So there's two ways. If people are looking to do it themselves, if they want to do it on their own, they can do it on their own. But if they're looking for guided help, they can go to DIYBook.us. And what I've done there is I like to think I've democratized the writing process. My first company is a ghostwriting company called In Ink Ghostwriting. And for the first 10 years of that, really what I did was help entrepreneurs write their business books or their entrepreneurial journey. But good ghostwriting does have a cost associated with it. And I would have to unfortunately turn away entrepreneurs who were, bootstrapped, wanted to do this, but couldn't necessarily afford the services of my ghostwriting company. So I've put all of the tools that I use with my ghostwriting clients into this platform, and it's self-regulated. So you get a weekly prompt that you can or cannot answer. The prompts for business books do follow a particular arc. Business books, although they are all different, can follow a particular formula, and that's the one that I've used here. And if you stick with it and you establish a rhythm, whatever it is, if it's writing once a day for 20 minutes or once a week for an hour, at the end of the process, you'll have a book.
I love that. And is that DIYBook.com, or how do they find that?
It's DIYBook.us.
.us, great.
Yes.
And I love that formula. So it is do it yourself, but you have the help of this accountability program to keep you on track to do something toward it every week. I love that. That is really a very smart idea. And who doesn't need that accountability, system? Because a lot of people have a book idea, but getting started and keeping going and keeping on track is no easy thing. So I like that. DIYBook.us sounds like a really cool program. And then if they don't want to do it themselves, you also offer that ghostwriting service.
Mm-hmm. And actually, for folks, if they're not quite ready to get to ghostwriting and engage ghostwriting services within the platform, I've made it possible for authors to book blocks of time with a ghostwriter, with one of my ghostwriters on my ghostwriting team. So you're not necessarily going to get the full bespoke ghostwriting experience, but you can book 5 hours and say, hey, look, I'm not sure that this sounds like me, or I'm not sure that this sounds like what I'm trying to convey. Could you read it and give me some feedback? Or I'm struggling with this transition here, and you can do that. So that's kind of a taste of what ghostwriting or working with a ghostwriter could be. And then if people know that they just don't have the time to do it on their own, or want more help, they can find me over at In Ink Ghostwriting.
So I love that. So you have a hybrid. They can either do it themselves, or they can get a ghostwriter, or something in between where they're doing it themselves, but they're purchasing a certain amount of hours for someone to kind of reread it, help rewrite it, and a hybrid of the two. That's great. You have something for everybody.
So every entrepreneur has no excuse. I have a podcast for them.
What's that?
I also have a podcast where people can listen to what the writing process is like.
Yes,
I'm trying to reach people at every yard.
That. And, so what I'm saying is no entrepreneur has any excuse not to get a book done now, thanks to Barbara. So you have a podcast. I did want to talk about that. I'm glad you brought it up. Writing for Immortality. I was joking with you. I'm glad it's not for
immorality.
Yeah, immorality. Yeah, right. So Immortality, right? Writing for Immortality. The podcast you can find just about anywhere.
It's on all the major platforms. It's if you want to find us on Instagram, it's writing the number 4 immortality. We also have a website that I'm actually actively putting together right now. It is writingforimmortality.com, and that's where all the episodes will live. But it's a weekly show, and I interview authors, editors, publicists, acquisitions editors, excuse me. And sometimes it's just me offering advice. And it's really to be another resource for people who want to write a book. If they're writing an entrepreneurial journey and they really think they want to do it on their own, they can. I mean, I do believe that people can do it. And so that's kind of the goal of that podcast, is to give people the confidence to be able to do it. Or if they're using these other services, to use this as sort of an add-on.
What is the percentage? Like, what percentage of people do it on their own, and what percentage hire you to do it? Just curious.
I think more people, I mean, I don't know the hard numbers off the top of my head, but I do know that more people try to do it on their own first. And in my experience, I've been doing this now for many, many years, I will hear from people and say, I want to write a book. I don't necessarily want to work with you right now, but I want to write a book. And then a couple of years go by and they call me again. And I'm excited to hear their progress. And it turns out they haven't made any progress. So it's the self-starter is there, but for an entrepreneur in particular, what happens is they get kind of swallowed up by everything else that they're doing. And, there are cases where folks do it on their own, but you do have to prioritize it just like you would any other part of your business.
Absolutely. So when people turn into your podcast, Writing for Immortality, what kind of information do you disseminate on there?
It's kind of a bit of everything. So this week, actually, we have a psychoanalyst who wrote a book about Barbie. And so we're talking about what psychoanalysis has to do with Barbie. And we talk about the process of writing the book. So we talk about her process of doing that. We had a couple weeks ago an acquisitions editor who talks about some of the myths that authors face when they're thinking about getting a book published. Wait, when you say Barbie, you mean they're writing about Barbie the doll? Barbie the doll, yes. So this kind of piggybacks on the movie, and tune in Thursday. Yeah, that sounds great. So they're writing about a book that's going to be about the creation of Barbie the doll? It's about Barbie the doll, but also it looks at identity and how Barbie's identity actually, so it turns out that Barbie's first iteration was as a German pinup named Lily, and how Ruth Handler actually kind of appropriated Lily and gave her this whole new identity. And so the author talks about what that means, and then she ties it into other concepts of what it means to have an identity or an identity stolen. So that's so interesting. I always thought the first one was modeled after her daughter, because she actually has a daughter named Barbie, who I've actually met. She lives here in LA, which is interesting. So that is fascinating backstory. And I will tell you, when my wife first said, we're going to go see the Barbie movie, I'm like, what? That sounded like the least empowering thing I could think of. And I couldn't believe when I went that I think the director just did an amazing, I felt like it was just brilliantly done, empowering to women. I was shocked. And so, wow, I didn't know that a book was coming out about that. I think that could be really fascinating. It's already out. I think it came out in maybe last month. She talks about patriarchy and what it means for men, and it's amazing the things that can be tied into psychoanalysis. And psychoanalysis itself apparently is having a renaissance in the United States. Dr. Freud is back, and so we talked about those things and what people are finding from it, and mental health resources post-COVID. So the conversations start one place, but the beauty, as you know, as a podcast host, is they can be serendipitous and go to other wonderful places as well. But always trying to kind of tie it back to, you can do this. Doesn't matter what you're writing about, why you're writing about, but you can do it. And here's, I hope, the confidence to give you to continue on your journey.
And so a friend of mine's working on an offshoot movie called Black Barbie that everybody's talking about. I imagine a book will follow, probably.
Hope so.
Yeah. So, I think it's fantastic that you have this podcast and these programs that help entrepreneurs write their own book, because I do think it's a great marketing tool. And I do think they are short on time, so it's good that you give them the options of doing their own through your program. I want to mention that again. It's a DIYBook. .us or as a ghostwriter, and your other company is in ink ghostwriting. So something for everybody. I love that. Have you had some entrepreneurs do books that have really led to success beyond what they had expected a book could do? Do you have any of those stories?
Oh, absolutely. I pretty much all of the ghostwriting entrepreneur books that we've done, the entrepreneur had an expectation of, okay, I'm going to write a book, I'm going to publish it. In just about every case, it resulted in benefits beyond what they were expecting. So I had one client who couldn't get booked on podcasts, was a fascinating person, couldn't get on podcasts. And as soon as the book came out and this person had byline, they got booked. And that's kind of generally the case with a lot of authors anyway. As you know, you have capital A author, you're at another level. So it always benefits people. I will say, though, and I'm sure you know this as well, marketing is something that authors absolutely have to think about, whether they're traditional or self-published. And that happens as you're writing the book. So,
and is that something your company helps with?
We can. We've worked with publicists. So we've had clients who have publicists that they want us to work with. We're on a couple projects where we're doing that right now. I'm not a publicist, but I do understand the book market, and we can put together a plan. Actually, when we're writing book proposals for clients who want a traditionally published book, there is a section called publicity, and publishing houses expect authors to handle a lot of their own PR and marketing these days. So we will craft a plan. And even if authors end up creating their own imprint, like a lot of entrepreneurs do, where they self-publish, this segment of a book proposal is incredibly helpful to guide how you're going to market your book.
Yeah, I guess this is a good time to mention we actually have a book coming out about the movie called Show Her the Money, same as the movie. And it's all about the women that helped invest in and create the movie, and then the women in the movie. So we're super excited to be releasing that this year. So it's about Show Her the Money, the story of the women of the movie and the movement. I combine the two. I call it a movie and a movement. So I have a new word for it, Barbara, a movement. So do people typically have a challenging time deciding what the book is about, or do most people already have a pretty good idea of what they want the book to be about?
It's a mix. It's definitely a mix. Some people come in with an idea. Some people come in with a draft. Some people have a concept, and sometimes that concept changes. So when we start, if we're doing ghostwriting, for example, the first thing we'll do is put together, if they don't have it, a annotated table of contents, so that we know the goal of the book, what we're trying to do, and how we're going to achieve that over the course of 6 or 8 chapters or whatever it is. A lot of times entrepreneurs will come in, and if they've already written something, what I've kind of noticed a little pattern over the years, and what happens is everything is crammed into the first 2 chapters, and then the other ones are just kind of peter off. So sometimes all of their content is all there. We just need to stretch it out and embellish and add and enrich what's already there.
And do sometimes people come and say, look, I'm an expert in this. I want to write a book, but I have no idea what the book should be about.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So let's say this is what I specialize in. This is who I want to reach. How do we make that happen? And so we talk about it. And in the course of talking about it, I get a sense of what they want to sound like on the printed page. Sometimes the way people communicate orally is not necessarily how they want to sound in between hardcovers. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. And that can be a hard thing to nail down. Sometimes it's often the first thing that we're focusing on is making sure that the book sounds like the author. And, after 15 plus years doing this, after the first chapter, it's usually pretty squared away.
I love that. And then you must love the crescendo, the day, the most exciting day for an author. I know I've written a book before, is the day you have it finished, you have it in your hand. There's something magical about that and exciting about that, right?
Oh, it never gets old. It's like, it's like having a baby, or getting a puppy or whatever it is, because you've worked so hard. That's the other reason why I think, as you mentioned at the beginning of this, why we are so impressed by authors is because even though we all speak the same language, whatever language this book is being published in, we also know it's not easy to do. Even though we could do it all, not all of us do it for various reasons. And so when we do it, there's such joy and relief, and you've experienced kind of the arc of emotions to finally have that book in your hands. Never gets old.
It never does. I've never seen somebody finish a book and not be super excited about it. Like, it is a thrill to...
Even if it's not perfect.
Yeah.
Which it never is. You always find things you would have changed, but always happy for Pub Day. And
do you recommend that everybody that does a book does an audio version?
Yes, I think so. Audio is huge. Audio continues to grow. I have a friend who runs a recording studio in upstate New York, and we talked about this, and the audio market continues to grow. People listen to books. It is the same as reading. And when people say they're reading and I'm listening, I see no difference. Yeah, I think a good majority of people listen to the audio in their cars and whatnot, and almost every book of any substance that I've seen has an audio version. So, I agree with you. I think it's an important component for today's books. Well, thank you so much, because I know we have a lot of entrepreneur listeners and investor listeners who are probably thinking about doing a book. So now they have a great resource for it in Barbara if they want to do it themselves or have her do the ghostwriting. Barbara, where is the best place for them to reach you? I take it, are you on LinkedIn? I'm on LinkedIn, so they can find me at B. Basbanes on LinkedIn. They do a search on Google for Barbara Basbanes Richter. I pop right up. I'm kind of all over the place. Okay, great. And for those just listening, Richter is Richta, right? Richter. Sorry. Like the Richter scale. Yeah, Richter. I'm looking at it now. I could read my handwriting. I need you. Well, anybody out there ready to do a book? Barbara's your girl, and she can help you either do it yourself or do the ghostwriting. Something for everybody, but no excuses now not to start that book today, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in, and Barbara, you've been a great guest. Thank you for being here. Anybody that wants to reach us, my website is sheangelinvestors.com. Investors is plural. So sheangelinvestors.com. And of course, you can find our movie at showherthemoneymovie.com. And of course, I'm on LinkedIn like everybody. We can also, you can find our movie or our She Angel Investors on Instagram and Facebook. We're all everywhere, right? Yeah. Sure. Easy to access. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and make it an amazing day. And go out and write that book, everybody. Thanks.